2026 is turning out to be a pretty big year for gaming anniversaries, isn't it? Sonic turns 35, Persona turns 30, Zelda Metroid turned 40, and of course, Resident Evil turns 30 this year. To celebrate, we got the release of Resident Evil 9, or Resident Evil Requiem, whichever you prefer. It's been a huge success on all fronts so far, getting rave reviews and becoming the fastest selling game in franchise history. Why is this? Is it following up the massive success of 7, 8, and the Fantastic remakes? Is it just cultural hype? Is it Leon's massive veiny forearms? I intend to find out. To go over a bit of brief history, Resident Evil began its life as a remake to the Japanese exclusive game Sweet Home, before becoming something else entirely. I mean, to put things into perspective, it practically put the term survival horror on the map. It wasn't necessarily the first ever use of it, but it was certainly the most famous. The success was explosive, selling millions of copies and a whole lineage of sequels. Resident Evil 4 is where things took a turn to a more action-packed direction for the series. Like before, I don't know if I would say it pioneered the over-the-shoulder camera perspective, but it certainly popularized it. There are so many games coming out even today that you can trace inspiration back to Resident Evil 4. It was that impactful. And things will continue in this direction for RE5 and RE6, which was a lot like a playable Michael Bay movie and nearly completely abandoned the series' horror roots, something it would return to with the first-person perspective in RE7 and Village. If you're a fan of this series, you likely already know all of this, but because a lot of people are just starting out with the series this year, and especially with Requiem, I feel it's important to lay out the history lesson. With the 30th anniversary of the franchise approaching, Capcom tried a lot of different things, even playing with an open-world multiplayer game at one point before the game's director, Koshi Nakanishi, felt the game's current direction just wasn't what people wanted out of a Resident Evil game, and took things back to the drawing board. This eventually leads us to the game we have today, Resident Evil Requiem, released in late February of this year. I played the game a number of times now, be it to get all the achievements or just to get the most out of it. Is Resident Evil Requiem a good way to celebrate the franchise? Let's find out. And be warned, I'm spoiling the plot rotten, so if you want to go in blind, click off the video now and come back after you've tried the game yourself. Because the story is split between two characters, I'm going to do my best to put the pieces together chronologically. The story begins in 2026. Oh, look at that, I'm being timely this time. Following FBI data analyst, Grace Ashcroft, being called onto a mission in the city of Renwood to investigate a mysterious death, which just so happens to also be in the hotel where her mother, Alyssa Ashcroft, was brutally murdered years earlier. For those of you unaware, Alyssa Ashcroft comes originally from the Resident Evil Outbreak game, where she's one of the survivors you can play as. These games aren't super relevant to RE9's plot, but it does add just that bit more of background lore. It turns out, this is just one in a string of unexplained deaths affecting survivors of the Raccoon City incident. She investigates further and learns she's been watched for quite some time, something confirmed further when she has a flashback to the night of her mother's death. Before she can fully put the pieces together, she's attacked by an infected cop and forced to retreat to the upper floor, where she's kidnapped by one Victor Gideon. Enter Leon, the game's secondary protagonist, now under the employment of the DSO, with Sherry Birkin, who are all too aware of the mysterious deaths, since they're infected with the same virus. They are also on the trail of Victor Gideon, and things go sideways very fast when Victor starts unleashing his bioweapon, creating the same kind of aggressive zombies that attacked Grace.
You okay? What are you doing?
Grace awakens hours later in a hospital and sees... oh dear. She makes her escape, where she bumps into Leon. The two don't have much time to chat as they're separated, leaving Grace alone to look for a way out. It's here where she meets a young blind girl named Emily, who reveals that she's been here for some time. As Grace explores the facility further, She finds what she needs to release Emily. As it so happens, her way out is also locked off by a puzzle box with a braille. Things go sideways once more as the monster attacks again, dragging Emily into the basement of the building. Leon wakes up to being interrogated by Gideon, learning that he does in fact have the answers to Leon's illness. Leon gives him the old-fashioned Kennedy hello, leaving him alone to track down Gideon and take him down. Leon eventually finds Gideon's office and learns that Grace is supposedly connected to something called Elpis. While Leon is investigating this, Grace just barely escapes with Emily when they find a helicopter pilot, Harry Reid. If you know Resident Evil, you know how this next part goes. Their escape attempt goes rather poorly, leaving Harry dead and Emily injured. Leon assists their escape, but the two are cornered by the girl once more. The girl is killed, but Emily mutates into a freakish monster that Leon puts down, much to Grace's dismay, since she promised Emily that she would save her. Grace sets out on her own, only to be picked up by a mysterious new figure, Zeno. Leon gives chase, which leads him to the ruins of Raccoon City, where, suspiciously, the BSAA has set up camp before getting utterly demolished, even more suspiciously, by Zeno. After an extremely over-the-top, but nevertheless ridiculously cool motorcycle duel with Gideon on the highway, Leon tracks Zeno and Grace back to the ruins of RPD. And it's here where the mystery greatly thickens. It's here where Zeno reveals to Grace that Emily was a clone, one of many, actually, one of which used to live in the Raccoon City orphanage. Leon attempts to apprehend him, but Zeno dodges, revealing that he has the same powers as Wesker. Zeno summons a new Mr. X to attack Leon as he makes his escape, leaving Leon to deal with the tyrant once more as the ruins take him to the underground lab. Leon's infection is getting worse, getting very close to killing him. Grace, with a floppy disk her mom had left the night she died, learns that she was Oswald E. Spencer's adoptive daughter, as he began to regret his legacy near the end of his life, and wanted to leave a more positive impact. We're left with a choice: destroy Elpis, or release Elpis. That's the bad ending if you choose to release Elpis. Which goes without saying, because Leon would never go down that easy. The true good ending is to release Elpis, with Grace helping Spencer atone for his sins. Elpis is, as it turns out, not a bioweapon used for mind control, but a cure. Leon is cured, but Gideon returns to scold Zeno, who also no longer has his powers. He threatens to cut Gideon off from the connections, only for Gideon to kill him. His battle with Leon ensues, with Leon putting the nemesis down once and for all. As Leon and Grace accept their fates with the facility collapsing, they're rescued by Chris Redfield's task force, with Grace breaking the story of everything that had happened, and how the ruins of Raccoon City had been used for bioweapon trading for some time. Grace laments how she couldn't save Emily, but Leon gives her the hope she needed in saying he didn't hit any of her vitals as the two depart. Some time passes, and we learn Grace has not only adopted Emily, but also cured her and is giving her a happy ending. And that's the story of Resident Evil 9. I found it very enjoyable overall. I thought Gideon was an entertaining villain, Leon was great to see back in action, and I thought Grace was a compelling character. I do have some complaints, however. Zeno, for as big of a deal as he's made to be, is incredibly underdeveloped. He has the same powers as Wesker, but he's unceremoniously killed off in the game's canon ending, and we never learn exactly who he is or where he came from. Is he a clone of Wesker with the game's emphasis on cloning? We're never told. Secondly, if the virus infecting Leon and Sherry is slowly killing them as it killed the other victims, where are Claire and Ada? Claire was the one who rescued Sherry, and she and Ada both were in Raccoon City the same time as Leon was, but they're never even mentioned in the story. The story is satisfying overall, I just wish it took some time to address more of the franchise's history with how much it tries to celebrate it. But man, can I just take some time to give props to the actors? Nick Apostolides once again brings the house down as Leon, and Angela St. Albano is absolutely impeccable as Grace. She so perfectly sells the inexperienced, terrified regular person in way over her head, and completely insane, terrifying circumstances. Like, come on. We all want to be Leon, but realistically, we'd be Grace. The presentation in general is something I really want to take my hat off to. This game looks and sounds absolutely incredible, from the sound design to the hair physics. Raccoon City especially almost feels movie-like, and that makes me even more excited for the movie we're getting later this year. The rest of the game is no slouch visually either. The RE engine once again is put to great use and makes every detail feel like you could just reach out and touch it. But as good as the game looks and sounds, it plays even better. Resident Evil Requiem offers you the choice to play in first person, similar to RE7 and 8, or in the third person view that's been standard in the series since RE4. The game recommends playing in first person for Grace and third person for Leon, but there's nothing stopping you from switching that up in third person for both, first for both, or really any combination of these. Grace's sections are pure survival horror. If you played 7 or 8, these should feel incredibly familiar. Limited inventory, limited resources. You'll have to make every shot count, because if you blow through all your ammo too soon, you won't have it when you really need it. Sometimes it's most effective and reliable to just sneak around the zombies or weave around them. You can find different vials to create different recipes around the hospital, and with these you can craft different things, including healing items and ammo. You craft these with different items you can pick up, like scrap metal or empty bottles and blood. Yes, you heard that right. Blood. You can take the blood of zombies you kill and use it as a weapon against them. If you can get the drop on zombies and if you have a hemolytic injector, you can get an instant kill. This can be especially useful for the bigger enemies, like the Butcher or Chunk. You can find various hip pouches to slightly extend your inventory space, and this can get especially useful later in the game when you need to solve puzzles and carry more key items around, without necessarily needing to sacrifice materials you would use for ammo or healing. If Grace is the survival horror, playing as Leon is sheer catharsis. I am not kidding, it is a power fantasy incarnate. Everything Leon did in the remakes, he's just as capable of doing here. He can parry various attacks, follow up shots with melee attacks, the works. In certain sections, you can even pick up a chainsaw and just go to town on anything that gets in your way. And that is incredibly cathartic in of itself after all the Dr. Salvador-induced trauma. There's very little more satisfying than just mowing down the entire rooms that gave Grace so much trouble. Some of the action in Leon's sections is just insane. Seriously, it's like he thinks Ada is watching. Everything is about as snappy as you could hope for, and you're rewarded for checking every nook and cranny. You can eventually pick up a tracker that keeps tally of your kills, which can be used to purchase new weapons and upgrades from designated boxes. You have your typical rifles, pistols, submachine gun, and the game's namesake, the Requiem. Remember the hand cannon? It's a lot like that, and it absolutely decimates most enemies. Some require a few more shots than others, but most others get absolutely one-shotted, or at the very least, stunned to buy you enough time to get around as Grace, or follow up with a melee attack as Leon. Like previous titles, the main settings are broken up into 3 different places: the hospital, Raccoon City, and the lab. The first half of the game is predominantly led by Grace, with the latter half by Leon. The ante gets upped at what I feel is a pretty reasonable degree, with some stronger enemies roaming the hospital and the lab having Lickers and the elite guard for Leon to contend with. Lickers are perhaps the most satisfying enemies in the whole game to parry though, even more so than the bosses. Like most Resident Evil games, Requiem isn't very long at all and should only take you about 10 hours to complete. The whole goal of a Resident Evil game being to take a slower first playthrough, learn how all the puzzles work and what you can reasonably get away with, and then get through it faster and faster every time. Though, extras like infinite ammo certainly do make things easier at a certain point. There are also plenty of cosmetic, both as unlockables and DLC, though you may not get the most out of them if you're playing in first person. I do have to say though, I am a big fan of Grace's Noir outfit, and the Lady Dimitrescu outfit is a welcome addition. Leon being able to keep his sick jacket or get his one from RE4 back is also super cool, but part of me will always have a soft spot for the old RPD uniform. What more can I say? RE9 is a fantastic game that well deserves the praise it's been getting. Where it ranks on my personal Resident Evil totem pole is a bit harder to say, as we're still getting more DLC later this year, and I don't feel entirely confident talking about it as a complete package, next to something like the RE4 remake. I mean, it doesn't even have a dedicated Mercenaries mode yet, something that will hopefully be rectified with future DLC, even if I do think it should have been there to begin with. But wow, what a game. If it isn't Claire, it isn't fair.